3 months before my wedding, I thought I had everything figured out. James was the perfect fiancé. We had our venue booked at a beautiful lakeside resort, and I was living what felt like a fairy tale. I was preparing dinner that Friday evening, humming while seasoning the salmon, when James called to say he was leaving the office. After our sweet exchange of love yous, I heard what sounded like him hanging up. But something made me pause before ending the call myself. Little did I know that forgotten phone call would shatter everything I believed about our relationship. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like button if you have ever trusted someone completely. Make sure to subscribe because this story will show you exactly why sometimes the most devastating discoveries can actually be the biggest blessings in disguise. Let me paint you a picture of how perfect my life seemed just hours before everything collapsed. I am Monica, 27 years old, working as a marketing coordinator at a small but successful firm in Chicago. I met James 2 years earlier through a dating app, and from our very first coffee date, he seemed like everything I had been looking for. He was 30, worked as a sales manager, and had this incredible way of making me feel like the most important person in the world. James was the definition of a gentleman. He opened doors, remembered the little things I mentioned in passing, and had this amazing ability to make even ordinary Tuesday nights feel special. When he proposed 6 months ago with a stunning 2-carat diamond ring during a sunset walk along Lake Michigan, I actually cried happy tears for a solid 10 minutes. My family absolutely adored him. My dad, who is usually skeptical of any guy I bring home, was genuinely impressed by what he called James's old-fashioned respect and genuine character. We had been deep into wedding planning mode. Our guest list was finalized at 150 people. I had already ordered my dress from a boutique that had a 6-month waiting list, and we had put down deposits that represented months of my savings. James always seemed so supportive of every decision, telling me that money was no object because he wanted our special day to be perfect. He claimed his finances were solid and encouraged me to dream big for our future together. The financial conversations never felt strange at the time. James would ask thoughtful questions about my savings account, which had grown to about $50,000 over the years, and showed genuine interest in my family's stability. I had mentioned that my grandmother left me a small inheritance of $25,000, and he seemed touched by the family stories I shared. Looking back now, I realize how much information I volunteered about my financial situation, thinking it showed how transparent and trusting our relationship was. That particular Friday started like any other. I left work excited about our quiet evening at home, stopped by the grocery store to grab fresh salmon and asparagus, and spent the afternoon planning some weekend wedding tasks. James and I had developed this lovely routine where he would call me when leaving his office, and I would have dinner ready by the time he walked through the door. It felt domestic and cozy, like we were already practicing for married life. When my phone rang at exactly 6:30, I answered with my usual cheerful greeting while flipping the salmon in the pan. "Hey babe, just leaving the office, be home in 30, James said in his familiar warm voice. "Perfect, dinner will be ready. Love you," I replied, already thinking about lighting the candles on our dining table. "Love you too," he responded, and then I heard what sounded like the line disconnecting. I was about to press the end call button when I noticed my phone screen still showed an active connection. There was background noise, the sound of a car door closing, and then suddenly I heard James's voice again, but completely different. "Dude, you there?" he said in a casual, almost dismissive tone that I had never heard him use before. My finger froze over the end call button as a male voice responded, "Yeah, man, so how is the countdown going?" My heart started beating faster as I realized what was happening. James had accidentally pocket dialed me, and I was overhearing a conversation he never intended for me to hear. Every instinct told me I should hang up immediately, but something in his tone made me hesitate. This was not the gentle, considerate James I knew. This voice was cocky, almost calculating. What I heard next turned my world completely upside down. James laughed in a way that made my skin crawl and said, "3 more months of this act, then I am home free." The word act hit me like a physical blow. What did he mean by act? Was our entire relationship some kind of performance? His friend's voice came through clearly. "You sure you can pull this off? Marriage is serious business." James's response made my knees buckle. "Trust me, I have got this figured out perfectly," he said with a confidence that felt completely foreign to the man I thought I knew. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of what I was hearing. Maybe they were talking about wedding stress or nerves about commitment. I desperately wanted there to be an innocent explanation. But then the conversation took a turn that made my blood run cold. "So the financial situation is as good as you thought?" his friend asked. James replied, "Better. Her dad owns 3 properties, and she has got that inheritance coming." I nearly dropped the phone. My father owns exactly one house, the modest 3-bedroom home I grew up in, and my inheritance from my grandmother was exactly what I had told James, $25,000, not some massive windfall. The realization that James had been lying about my family's financial situation, or worse, exaggerating it for some purpose, made me feel sick to my stomach. I slumped against the kitchen counter, my hands trembling, as I continued listening to this conversation that was destroying every assumption I had about my life. "What about after the honeymoon? You planning to actually stay married?" The question came through the phone like a knife to my heart. James's answer nearly made me collapse. "Long enough to get what I need. Maybe 2 years max. 2 years maximum." He was planning our divorce before we even walked down the aisle. Every sweet moment, every time he told me he loved me, every conversation about our future children and growing old together had been calculated manipulation. James began explaining his strategy with the casual tone someone might use to discuss their weekend plans. He talked about gaining access to my savings account, using my business connections from work to network with wealthy Chicago families, and how my trusting nature made everything easier. "She is so trusting, never questions anything. Perfect target, honestly," he said, and his friend responded with, "Cold man, but I respect the hustle." The word target echoed in my head. I was not his girlfriend, his fiancé, or his future wife. I was a target in some elaborate con game. "It is not personal. She is nice enough, just not wife material for long term." James continued discussing me like I was a business transaction rather than the woman who had spent 2 years building a life with him. As I sat on my kitchen floor, listening to him rate my cooking skills and make casual comments about my body weight, I felt something inside me break and then immediately begin to harden into something else entirely. The James I loved had never existed. I had been in love with a carefully constructed character designed to extract money from me. The friend asked about logistics, and James launched into a detailed explanation that proved this was not some spur-of-the-moment scheme. "Already working on joint accounts. She is eager to start our life together," he said, and I realized he had been pushing for us to combine our finances under the guise of romantic partnership. He had researched Illinois divorce laws extensively and knew exactly how property would be divided. He was planning to establish a pattern of documenting my supposed emotional instability to make the eventual divorce proceedings favor him. But the most chilling part was when he discussed creating fake gambling debts to justify accessing my money faster. He had thought through every angle, every possible scenario, every way to manipulate not just me, but potentially the legal system itself. "Document everything. Maybe some marriage counseling sessions where she looks bad," he said, and I realized he was planning to gaslight me professionally. When his friend asked, "What if she gets suspicious?" James laughed with genuine amusement. "She will not. She is completely blinded by love, talks about our future kids constantly." Hearing him mock my dreams of having children with him felt like being stabbed repeatedly. Those tender conversations where I had shared my deepest hopes for our family were nothing more than ammunition for his manipulation. "Sometimes she cries happy tears. It is almost sad," James said, and I remembered all the moments when I had been overwhelmed with gratitude for finding him. Every single one of those precious memories was being revealed as moments when I was being played by someone who saw my emotions as weaknesses to exploit. The final blow came when his friend asked about backup plans. "Actually, I have got options. "There is this woman at my gym divorce lawyer," James replied casually. Not only was he planning to destroy my life, but he was already scouting his next victim. He went on to reveal that this was not even his first con. "Did something similar in Phoenix before moving here," he said proudly. "You are a sociopath, but damn effective," his friend observed, and James responded, "It is about reading people. Monica needed someone to complete her life." The way he analyzed my vulnerabilities with clinical detachment made me realize I had never actually known this person at all. Everything I thought was love and understanding was actually psychological manipulation. I heard car doors slamming as James got ready to drive home to me. "Gotta go play loving fiancé. Wish me luck with dinner theater," he said before the line finally went dead. I sat in complete silence as the smoke alarm started going off from the salmon burning in the forgotten pan. The sound felt appropriate for my life going up in flames. After turning off the stove and disabling the smoke alarm, I sat in our living room staring at my engagement ring like it was evidence in a crime scene. Because that is exactly what it was. The initial devastation was already transforming into something much more powerful, pure determination. James might have thought he was dealing with an easy target, but he had severely underestimated who he was trying to con. The advantage I had was enormous. James had no idea that I knew about his real agenda. While he thought he was still playing his role perfectly, I could start building a case against him. I am not the kind of person who falls apart when life hits hard. I am the kind who gets strategic. My marketing background had taught me how to research, document, and build compelling narratives. Now I was going to use those skills to protect myself and make sure James faced consequences for his actions. I spent the weekend systematically investigating everything I could find about James's past. When he went to his Saturday morning gym session, which I now suspected was really a meeting with that divorce lawyer he had mentioned, I went through his belongings with the thoroughness of a detective. Hidden in his car's glove compartment, I found a second phone containing text messages that revealed ongoing cons with 3 other women in different stages of his process. The business cards tucked behind his driver's license had women's names with notes about their financial status written in James's handwriting. One card had "Sarah Nurse owns condo 401k" written on the back. Another had "Jennifer Teacher inheritance pending trusting." I was not his only target. I was part of a systematic operation. I photographed everything before replacing each item exactly where I found it. Then I scheduled a consultation with a family law attorney for Monday morning. The lawyer I chose specialized in fraud cases and came highly recommended by a friend whose cousin had gone through something similar. I also began researching con artist patterns and legal remedies, discovering that documentation would be crucial for any chance at justice. When James returned home that Saturday evening, I had to give the performance of my lifetime. "Hey babe, how was your workout?" I asked, knowing he had probably spent the morning planning my financial destruction with another woman. "Great session today. You seem relaxed. Did you have a good day?" he responded, studying my face for any sign that something had changed. "Just enjoyed having some quiet time to think about how lucky we are," I said, watching him carefully for any reaction. James smiled that charming smile that had won over my family and said, "I think about that every day. We really hit the jackpot finding each other." The ease with which he lied while looking directly into my eyes was genuinely terrifying. Monday's attorney meeting confirmed what I already suspected. I had grounds for both criminal fraud charges and civil recovery, but I would need more evidence to make a strong case. The lawyer advised me to document James's pattern of deception systematically. Illinois law allows single-party consent for recording conversations, which meant I could legally capture more evidence of his admissions. Over the next week, I orchestrated a plan that would give James enough rope to hang himself legally. I created fake financial documents that showed my assets were significantly lower than he believed, wanting to see how he would react to the news that his payday might not be as large as expected. I also installed a recording application on my phone that would allow me to capture conversations legally. Wednesday evening provided the perfect opportunity. I called James while he was out with friends, had a brief conversation about dinner plans, and then pretended to hang up while actually activating my recording app. Just as I hoped, James immediately called his friend to discuss their ongoing operation. "She is getting nervous about wedding expenses," James said. But I reassured her that our love is more important than money. She actually bought it completely. He went on to describe exactly how he planned to access my savings account immediately after our honeymoon, and how he had been encouraging me to add him to my investment accounts as a sign of trust. The recording captured him detailing his timeline for disappearing with my money and discussing how he would establish evidence of my supposed emotional problems to justify his actions in divorce court. He bragged about how easily I believed his lies and how he had been researching my family's actual financial situation behind my back. Thursday brought a breakthrough when I contacted the Phoenix Police Department. After explaining my situation, I was connected with a detective who remembered James from previous complaints. 2 other women had filed reports about financial fraud, but the cases had been dismissed due to insufficient evidence. My recordings and documentation could potentially reopen those cases and establish the pattern needed for serious charges. By Friday, I had assembled a comprehensive dossier that included audio recordings, photographs of evidence, financial records, and witness statements from the Phoenix detective. My attorney reviewed everything and confirmed we had an exceptionally strong case for fraud charges and civil recovery. More importantly, my evidence could help the previous victims get justice and potentially prevent James from targeting future women. Saturday evening, I decided it was time to end this charade. I sat James down in our living room and calmly asked him to tell me about his time in Phoenix. He launched into a smooth story about his previous job and why he had moved to Chicago for better opportunities. Every word was a lie delivered with perfect sincerity. "That is interesting," I said quietly. "I spoke with Phoenix police this week." I watched his face carefully as confusion and then panic flickered across his features. "What are you talking about?" he asked, and for the first time since I had known him, James looked genuinely caught off guard. I played the recording of his conversation where he detailed his entire con operation. As his own voice filled our living room, describing me as a target and outlining his plans to steal my money, James went through every stage of being caught. First, denial. "This is not what it sounds like." Then anger. "You recorded me illegally." Then bargaining. "I can explain everything, I really do love you." And finally, threats. "You have no idea what you are messing with." "I have documented everything," I told him calmly. "My attorney has copies of all evidence, and I have an appointment with the district attorney on Monday morning. The only choice you have now is whether to leave quietly or be escorted out by police." James tried one final manipulation, claiming that he had genuinely fallen in love with me and that his plans had changed. But I was done being anyone's target. "The only thing that changed is I found out who you really are," I said. "And I am going to make sure everyone else knows too." He packed his belongings and left that night. I changed all my locks immediately and contacted my bank to alert them about potential fraud attempts. Monday morning, I filed a comprehensive police report, and by the end of the week, the district attorney had decided to prosecute based on the strength of my evidence and the pattern established with James's previous victims. 6 months later, James pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and was sentenced to probation with full restitution to all his victims. But more importantly, I had discovered something about myself that I never knew existed. I was capable of protecting myself, fighting back, and turning a devastating betrayal into an opportunity for justice. The recovery process taught me things about resilience I never could have learned otherwise. Through therapy and the incredible support of my family and friends, I rebuilt my ability to trust my own judgment. I got promoted at work, partly because the analytical skills and confidence I had developed during this experience made me better at my job. I also became an advocate for romance fraud awareness, helping other women recognize red flags and protect themselves financially. The experience taught me that real love never pressures you to combine finances quickly, never dismisses your concerns as emotional instability, and never makes you feel like you need someone else to complete your life. Looking back now, I am actually grateful that James forgot to hang up that phone. Yes, it shattered my fairy tale, but it also saved me from a much worse fate. Instead of discovering his deception after marriage, when his legal position would have been stronger and my losses much greater, I learned the truth while I still had the power to protect myself and seek justice. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the thing that saves you from an even worse destiny. That forgotten phone call did not just reveal James's true character, it revealed mine too. And I turned out to be much stronger than either of us had realized. Have you ever discovered something that completely changed your perspective on a relationship? What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments below, and if this story helped you think about trust and red flags in relationships, please hit that like button. Subscribe for more real stories about overcoming betrayal and finding strength you never knew you had. Share this with anyone who might need to hear that. Sometimes the most devastating discoveries can actually be the biggest blessings. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your instincts are usually right, even when your heart wants to ignore them.